What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Clément of Fractal Universe. Thank you so much for being here today, man. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. So, the new album, which is scheduled to come out very soon, the Impassible Horizon. Do you just want to talk about like how the making of this album was? Like, was there like a goal that Fractal Universe had in mind? How did the Impassible Horizon sort of like see the light of day?
So we started the composition process far ago. It was at the time we released the Rhizome of Insanity. So it was back in 2019. We started to work on new songs, and we recorded this during this pandemic thing. I believe it was in France at the end of the first lockdown we faced. So basically, it was May, I think, if I do remember. It was in May last year. And we were thinking a lot about what we would do with this pandemic. Should we release it during this time where there's no show to defend it or not? So actually, we are releasing it at the right time because in France we're gonna start concert again in few weeks. So it's a great time for this album to see the light, as you mentioned, because we could maybe defend it live.
Yeah, well, and just in time for when shows do return in France. And I gotta ask, did maybe like this lockdown and all this panic and everything maybe influence the sound of this album? Because I will say that if there's anything you could say that's good about the pandemic, it's definitely a good source of creativity for heavy metal.
Yeah, because usually we do a lot of work. We are all teachers of our instruments. So during the lockdown, I wasn't able to give a single lesson to my students. So I had a lot of time to work on the drum and find ideas to make it the best out of it. And yeah, for the recording, we did it at my place. I'm running a professional studio there. And so we take a lot of time, a lot of days to try new stuff, to try different drum heads, to try different cymbal stuff. And so, yeah, we tried to use the pandemic to do it the best we could. And we managed to shoot some video clips as well. So you saw the first one. There's two more video clips to come out soon.
It's awesome. And do you feel that like, cause is there almost kind of like a sound that Fractal Universe tries to stick with? Because I think when you compare, like, I'm very impressed when you listen to the Boundaries of Reality EP going into Engram of Decline and so on and so forth. Like, is there a sound that you always try to stick with, or do you try to maybe experiment with each album?
I think we improved a lot as a musician. I mean, just not technically, but regarding the sound production. I mean, for the drum, for example, on Boundaries of Reality, you have to know that I wasn't in the band at the time, so it just a program drum for a lot of the songs. But then on Ingram of Decline, I think the production is not that organic as it's become now. And so it's something I love technical death metal, progressive death metal, but I also love drum, natural drum sound. And this is something which matters to me, to do something when you can really hear what the drummer is playing. And so I think it helps a lot for all the production, like the guitar and stuff. Everything is different when you have something really organic from your record.
Yep, and the famous saying of rock and roll: if your drummer sucks, your band sucks. So you want to make sure that
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
hope I don't suck.
You
I hope.
definitely don't. You definitely don't. You're beating on
Thank you.
those drums like they owe you money.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you think that the first single that you released off of the new album like is maybe a good representation of what the entirety of the Impassable Horizon would sound like in a way, or is Clockwork Expectation almost kind of like just one little taste of it?
I think it's one little taste of it. The single selection is something so important for metal bands. We had a lot of debate, like which song we had to put. But I think we wanted to reach a larger audience. And so we decided to put single, really listenable by a lot of people. But there would be a lot of really heavy songs, really punchy ones. Some other more progressive, like what we did on Ingram of Decline. So Clockwork is a great single to be introduced to the band, but there's some heavier stuff, some progressive stuff, and so it's just a taste of a full album.
And kind of going to your drumming, you brought that up with the production of it or everything, but drums are like I feel like regardless if you're playing technical death metal or you're playing smooth jazz, I feel like it all has the same purpose of holding the rhythm and keeping the beat together. Do you always need music before you lay down the rhythm in the drums, or do you sometimes have a whole drum pattern laid out and the band could write over that?
No, basically the composition process is run by Vince, our guitarist, saxophonist, and singer. So he brings some pre-production really well done, and he knows how to write drum. So I follow him the most of the time regarding the patterns, and I try to put my ideas for drum fills. Or sometimes he says something like, "I don't know, try a bit or something." I had no really clean ideas there, so try something. So usually I'm following the drum part he wrote and adapt when it's impossible to play or when he says try something you feel like. But in the future, I really would love to try to create patterns. Sometimes we jam in the rehearsal room, and it's always great. We do some really random riffing stuff. I'm just playing something stupid and they follow, but it's always really funny and maybe something could came out of this. So who knows?
Yeah, well, because I was gonna ask you, I talked with Dirk from Megadeth about this, but like
Oh,
yeah, and I asked him like if somebody presents music to you before there's any drums on it, be honest, how off time is it sometimes?
uh, it depends really. I just did a recording session for a band, and it's true that it was not really clean on the click track, but that's okay.
Yeah. But like when you hear like the music presented to you, is like how do you know like okay, I have to hit the ride symbol here or do the crash
Oh,
symbol here because like I'd imagine do you hear something in the melody or is there something in the riffs? Like from what I understand is the ride symbol is more used in like the chorus or and whatnot and the hi-hats more used in like the verse, but I'm not a drummer so I could just be talking out of my
or
ass at this point.
really it depends on which style you're gonna play. I think for huge death metal, there's a lot of mix between blast beats, between skunk beats like tuta 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 tuta, and there's a lot. It's not really open for something really new. You have to follow the guitar and you have to feel what's the degree of violence you want to put in the song. So from that, for really technical stuff or really death metal stuff, you follow the guitar accent. Like for example, you play a ta tu ta tu ta tu ta. You will play, for example, a blast beat like ta tu ta tu ta tu ta with a lot of crash accent at that part. Or if it's a skunk beat, you will follow this as well with some kicks or you know.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you teach drums as well. So, like, do you have like a theoretical element that you incorporate in your playing as well, or because metal is it's a rebellious form of music. This is rock and roll. There is like a no rules
Yeah.
sort of aspect behind it. So, like, do you almost feel that maybe like when you teach, it's a little bit more theory based and
No, at the first class for new students, we try to play some songs as soon as possible. It's always some. We will rock you from Queen or the White Stripe national anthem. The Seven Nation Army. It's always those basics, and then from that we try to help the student to grow. But there's no really theory regarding the way I compose drums. It's more following the guitar. Like the guitar is speaking, and you have to find the best way to support it.
yeah, and because I just when I hear the drums in Fractal Universe, it just sounds studied in a way. You know what I mean? Like there is like I don't know if you were you completely self taught in your career or did you also maybe have a master because this is very impressive technical playing.
No. I'm taking some drums lessons from friends from time to time, but I have no degree in drum or anything like this. Vince wrote some really good stuff on drums. So what I do basically is that I print the tabs, the drum tabs I got, and then I try to find some stickings, like if it works with a right, left, right, something like that. And from that, I try to start really low and to work. And with all the songs he wrote, I had to improve a lot as a drummer. And thanks to him, I can play those songs now. But it has been a lot of work to put into this.
I almost feel like if you're a drummer, you have to be ambidextrous. Like, or does it even matter if you're lefty or righty when you drum?
I don't know. I think you notice that a lot of drummers, like Sebastian Lanzer or lately Alex Rudinger, they play with two rides, two hi-hat, and they do some really extreme stuff with the left hand. So it depends on which cymbals you want to put at the right time, but it's really some nerd stuff there.
Yeah, well, that's what I love. I mean, one of the most interesting drum sets I've ever seen was Ray from Korn's drum set. I mean, it looked like a
Oh
giant.
yeah,
It looked like a giant robotic spider.
yeah, with the big China up there, you
Yeah,
know.
like, I mean, that's just cosmetic, right? Is there any advantage to having all of that?
I think there's a visual advantage when you think about this drum kit. It's the first thing that come in your mind. It's this big China there with the big spider stuff. So it's kind of a signature kit from him. You know, I think it's important for drummers to have recognizable drum kit. Like there's a lot of guys you just see the drum kit, you know who's behind.
Yeah. Well, I remember I interviewed Mike Portnoy one time, and he said my funniest line. He said one of the funniest lines. He says, "There's two things you could tell by my drum kit. One is that I didn't set it up, and two, I didn't pay for it."
Yeah, that's true. Because for me, I have a minimalist metal thing starter pack. Because yeah, I do both things that Mike doesn't do.
Yeah. Well, you maybe use the Hello Kitty drum kit.
Yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
but I think it won't last long.
Do you prefer to like write the drum parts when you're maybe in the company of your other bandmates and like you're able to kind of like work together, or do you find it maybe easier when there's nothing standing between you and the music and you could just write alone? I know a lot of artists like to use isolation as fuel for creativity.
If I well understand, you ask if I try things with the guys,
Yeah, yeah, or
or
do you
if I do both. I do both.
Okay.
It depends on of the difficulty. You know, sometimes it's something pretty easy. You just want to try 3 4 ideas. You don't have to work on it, so you just try something. And some other patterns or break are difficult. So I say to Vince, because we work a lot together, just the two of us, when we are in the writing process for drum, I said, give me 1 or 2 weeks and I show you something really clean. So it depends. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm alone with the backing track and I'm trying some different ideas, and then we discuss that. So it's both.
Okay. And is there maybe a similar energy that you channel into the live presence as you do when you are in the studio, or do you consider playing live and being in the studio two completely separate games altogether?
I think when you are in the studio, you have to be at the top for like 6, 7 or more hours behind your drum kit. So you have to manage your energy carefully. That means you have to play loud, you have to play really tight, and you have to keep the powerness from the morning to the last take you do in the evening. So it's complicated, but for the live, there's also the stage presence aspect. So I'm more kind of guy who try to put the more energy he can during a live show, and to be the more impressive for the audience. You know, so you have to play good both, but it's different. Like you can give everything for 30 minutes, but when you are in the studio, you have to stay focused mentally and physically for 6, 7 hours. So it's really something different.
How frustrating is it if you are like recording drums and like they just like stop you in the middle of it and have to retake it? That's got to be kill the vibe so much, right?
Oh yeah, I mean Vince knows what he wants on drums. So when you are in the studio, sometimes you discuss idea, and so there's kind of debates, but it's all musical. There's no issue after it. But yeah, during debate time, sometimes it can be frustrating when you thought you did something great, and the guy just said, "Do it again." It's not what we wrote, So sometimes it's frustrating. We have this debate a lot, like what part of freedom should the drummer have in studio?
Yeah. Well, do you like because you're hit? There are so many beats involved and so many technical elements. It's not like and I'm not trying to discredit guitars and vocals, but with like vocals, it's the same lyrics every time. With guitars, it's usually like the same riffs every time. I feel like it's easier to memorize a pattern with that. With when you're playing live, are you executing it exactly how it is in the studio, or like do you sometimes like throw in an extra crash in there or like experiment a little bit more? I feel like it is almost like a mad
Yeah.
scientist sort of thing.
Yeah, I like to challenge songs because you played it so many times that it start to be boring at some point. So you try to keep it fresh in your mind. So sometimes you just go off a little bit, but there's some really parts which are not moving, but some parts with yeah, it depends. But sometimes yeah, I like to try things live, but it's been like a year I didn't play a show, so I don't know for those new songs what I will do. But yeah, sometimes I try, sometimes I fail. So you have to be really careful about what you are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I feel like if you mess up on drums, like everybody knows it's not one of those things where you could get away with botching a note.
Yeah, sometimes you speak with friends at the end of a show and you say, "Did you notice how I fucked up this part?" And they are all like, "Oh no, I didn't get it." But your mates, they know it. They sometimes they just look at you like, "What happened?" Like,
I'll,
so yeah.
that's what I call the stare of death when you're playing and then somebody's just looking behind and one of the bandmates are just looking over their shoulder at you.
Yeah, and when we are in the rehearsal room, sometimes I do some little mistakes, and I pray for Vince not to notice it, and then I saw him like it just give me a quick look, like, okay, I've heard it.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Nothing is the big brother eyes.
Of course, of course. And the final question I wanted to ask you, distancing ourselves from the new album and drumming, but you guys are from Nancy, France, right? That's where the band is originally
Yeah.
based out of.
Yeah.
Now, France is a big country, but and when it comes to heavy metal in France, in fact, the last interview I did, I just interviewed the black metal band Seth, who's also from France and really good band. But like, there's a great handful of bands. Landmarks is from there, and of course, everybody knows Gojira. But is there kind of like a scene in your region in France that Fractal Universe is associated with, or do you prefer to play outside your hometown a little bit more?
We played in the whole country, but there are many great bands because Nancy is close to Germany. It's also close to Luxembourg, and there's a lot of bands from this little area. Just to mention a quick bands, it's for example Catalyst. Maybe you've heard
I've
about
heard of
them.
them. Yep.
There's also Deficiency, thrash metal band. I
Isn't
don't know if you heard about those guys.
I've heard of them.
Deficiency.
Yeah, I've heard of Deficiency. Isn't
Yeah.
isn't Benighted also from near where you are?
Benighted are in Lyon, so
Okay.
it's 4 hours by drive.
Okay.
But there's also Scarred from Luxembourg,
Yep.
really close to us. They just dropped a new record, and yeah, there's a lot of bands, but the whole country is full of really talented bands.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm waiting for one band to book a gig in the catacombs. That needs to happen.
okay, but the only question is, can you place the drum kit? Can you place the bass drum inside the catacombs? Because I don't know if you heard a lot about this, but there's some really tiny space to move. So I'm not sure we could place a drum kit there.
Bring a set of bongos for that one gig.
Yeah, just an acoustic version.
Of course. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for a great discussion.
No problem.
Is there just anything else that you would like to promote? You mentioned that you do have some shows coming up. Is there just anything else you'd like to plug?
No, just we're gonna launch a drum challenge. Like I don't know if you saw, we did a guitar challenge. Like you try to play the riff and shoot yourself to win an album. So I think it's tomorrow we drop this.
Yeah.
There's a drum challenge with a part with triplets. So if you are drummers, maybe give a try to this. It can be really funny. And otherwise, thank you for your invitation again.
Yeah.
And maybe see you next time. Maybe we will tour the US someday when it will
Please.
be better
Yep.
and meet.
We are starving for heavy metal mosh pits, so please come to the US when all this shit is over.
Yeah, I really hope we will. It's my biggest musician dream to tour the US with the band. So I hope it will happen soon.
We'd love to have you here, but thank you so much, everybody. Fractal Universe. Be sure to check out their brand new album, The Impassible Horizon, coming out via Metal Blade Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York.